Hey, everybody, welcome to Grab Your Keys. I am super excited to have a fantastic entrepreneur who is also a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization with me. I met him last week and I was super excited when I met him and I said, you have got to be on my Grab Your Keys. So, David is a founder, fintech and startup national investor, driver of enterprise value, and organic champagne importer. So many different things, and a father and husband. So how do you do all that and have a family? So David, welcome to Grab Your Keys.
Hi, Sue. It's a pleasure to be with you, and it's good to see you again from the recent conference that we were at, learning together.
Absolutely. I love learning together. So why don't you tell everybody about your amazing company and what you do?
Yeah. So AVID Vines is an importer of organic, high-quality wines and champagnes, principally from France, but the portfolio is growing. It will eventually cover other countries. But AVID Vines as a brand stands on two really critical, important aspects. One, it's always certified organic and sustainable. So you enjoy it twice, once when you drink it and the next day when you wake up with absolutely no regrets. And the second is that we always bring these very delicate products over on chilled containers from Europe to the US. Now, only 5% of all the wine that comes from Europe to the US is ever put into a chilled container.
Wow, I had no idea.
If it's organic and it's as delicate as ours, it has to. Otherwise, like every other wine, it gets dulled from 6 weeks on the water. Even in the shoulder seasons, let alone the summer, it bakes. And then it sits in port for 2 weeks. And by the time it gets to your store or your restaurant and into your glass, it really is. That's why it's never the same as when you're drinking right from the vineyard.
Right.
There's a big difference. So we solve that particular issue by, paying more for these containers, but these are excellent products and they're not nationwide. I bring them to just pockets of where, I find people who really want to drink well are. And that's
Right.
all across the country.
So I do wake up with a headache when I drink red wine and when I drink champagne. And I am a champagne drinker, by the way. You just nailed it when you saw me, probably. So
I can spot them a mile away.
You can spot them a mile away. So with your champagne and your red wine, why wouldn't, and you're saying because it's refrigerated, that's why and organic, that's why I wouldn't have a headache?
Well, yeah, think about this. I mean, especially when all wines that are certified organic, it means that they're not spraying chemicals that are on the leaves that are meant to, fight off insects and pests and mold. And there's no extra nitrates or like Miracle Grow, the equivalent, in the fertilizer that are meant to produce higher yield, but, for, to sell and so forth. These are absent. And it means that they have to take greater care in the vineyards when mildew or insects, and they will use regular vinegar. It's, more nature-made products instead of chemicals. But when you do spray, all that gets pulled in to the vine and it expresses itself in the grape. And then in the winemaking process, it gets concentrated. There's an interesting phenomenon. Anything that we eat and anything that we drink that's non-alcoholic has to pass through and have a nutrition label from the FDA. But
Right.
Lo and behold, everything with alcohol doesn't have a label on it. Why is that? But it's because everything with alcohol that we consume is regulated by the Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms division of the Treasury Department. Wow. So it has absolutely nothing to do with food, but it's all about taxation and it's all about the way it was done in Prohibition and coming out of Prohibition. And it's never been changed since because there are some heavy, ensconced interests that keep it that way.
Lobbyists.
If you could see what a nutrition label is for some of the alcohol beverages that we drink, you wouldn't be drinking them.
Right.
And so that's why on a bottle, such as the ones that I have for the champagnes that we import, it's got an icon on the back that shows that this is passed. You only get them if you pass a 90-point audit between the air, the water, and the land, showing that you demonstrate sustainable practices, organic production methods. And that's what it comes down to. I mean, these aren't mass industrialized made champagnes like
Right.
common ones we see on the shelf, who buy their grapes from farmers all over the region and make the wines that are ubiquitous. You can go to the shelf and pull it up, but you're going to get a headache. These champagnes support one farmer and one family only. It's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I love that idea, and I can't wait to try the champagne. So I'm gonna have to get with you so I can get a case.
Yeah.
And but what do you think you've been an entrepreneur forever, you've done a lot of different things. What do you believe your 3 keys to success are?
Wow. I think you have to communicate a vision and a strong enough mission that helps people really come to contribute. I don't say work, but come to contribute daily and serve something larger than themselves and or a paycheck. If you do that, you unlock a lot of what people's creativity and people's motivation to have a real outward mindset, right? Most work is sometimes done in bureaucracies and in large corporations. It's a kind of siloed exercise. I do my work, I throw it over the cubicle or the Zoom chat to the next person, and they take it up. And there's really, at its worst, there's really no care about what happens. But
It's just an assembly line.
It is, and it can be very insular. And then you have people who, just gang up on each other and or sub-optimize just for what they're doing. I learned very early on that if you have an outward mindset, you bridge what, your work product, your contribution is the input to someone else's, process. And how can those two sides work together to make it even better?
Yes, totally.
So
So number 1, communicate vision and mission, which I do agree with, that you need to have that mindset and not just have an assembly line where people are just doing their own little thing. What would be number 2?
Well, that's 1 and 2, right? So we have
Number 1 and 2. Okay.
Culture and vision, and then 2, develop an outward mindset. And then 3, I mean, I'm guilty of this too sometimes, of not communicating it in a clear enough fashion, goals, 30, 60, 90-day goals toward an annual goal, and working to achieve demonstrative milestones.
So do you write down your goals?
We do.
And do you tell your staff what those goals are and communicate those to everyone? And do they have buy-in on those?
Well, yes and no. So we could always do better. And I think it will, like right now we're starting to plan for 2024. Next week, I'll meet with my business coach. We will come up with what is like the financial plan for the company. And then we will work backwards and say, okay, if this is our annual goal, what's the monthly, rate at which we'll know whether we're on or behind plan? And if we're behind, well, if we're going to reach this monthly goal, then what are the steps we need? How many subscriptions do we have to sell to our wine club? How many wine courses, for what we offer, will people enroll and enjoy?
And pretty much it's breaking it down to almost by the day of how many people do you need to talk to? Same thing that everyone does or should do.
Yep. By the day, in terms of what, and then also by the product line. We sell bottles, we sell club memberships, and we sell a wine course for those who are starting their wine journey, and want to make friends with the sommelier and want that, and don't want to conquer that pressure of like being handed the wine list at a restaurant or family gathering for a business gathering and be like, okay, I got this.
I have that. Yeah, I have that. Usually I say, here it is. So
it's empowering, because it's very much like going into your wardrobe and picking out something that you want to wear. There's things like, when you listen to what people are ordering, and then you kind of figure out what to me, it's just a puzzle to unlock. And when people are, wildly sometimes thankful for like, oh, wow, this is fantastic. And thank you for picking this. You'll get there.
I feel it makes a huge difference in your dinner experience when you have someone who is used to making that decision and what goes with and without with things and doesn't go with things. If you're having the red wine or the white wine, if it's dry, if it's too dry, and I think that does make a difference. And I can always tell actually about an hour and a half later if I'm going to pay for my for the bottle that I had.
I'll give you and your audience 2 quick hacks for pairing.
Okay, go ahead.
The first is you never pair the protein, although that's the common thing, like red wine with meat and so forth. You pair with what the sauce is giving you.
Oh yeah,
Right?
that's great.
The second is, and this was an easy one, quick hack is everything pairs wonderfully with champagne. I'll even, when I say everything, I mean like a steak, like steak frite or, a Wagyu and, chicken, anything. Here I am going with protein, no matter what the sauce is, because champagne has this wonderful effect of its effervescence of brightening your palate.
Right.
And it has the acidity to kind of wash your tongue in between sips and bites. It's a weird phenomenon. The first lick of ice cream is the best. Yep. Your first bite of that steak is the best. 10th or 11th lick of the ice cream or bite of that steak, the 10th or 11th bite is kind of like, okay, it decreases your marginal utility or benefit from it. But if you're drinking champagne in between those bites of steak, your 10th bite is almost as if it were the first, because it's cleaning your palate with every sip. And you're like, oh my gosh, this tastes good all over again.
Yeah, absolutely. I love both of those, and I'm going to use both of those. Who do you admire?
Oh gosh, there's
so many, right?
There are many, and frankly, I had the privilege of being the president of the local chapter of this. You mentioned of this entrepreneurs organization. It's called Entrepreneurs Organization, EO. So locally, I surround myself with amazing entrepreneurs who I learn from every day, and that when I fail, I can kind of like bring my failures and kind of commiserate, not so much commiserate, but bring my failures and then learn with them, who have either walked that path before or serve as a guide and watch out like not to do for others. But gosh, who do I admire? I do admire, and I forget the gentleman's name, but he's the CEO of Boeing, and he used to be the CEO of Ford. And I wish I could remember his name. I had a privilege of attending a presentation by him at a learning conference where these are billion-dollar companies, and he's managed both of them just from one page. You talk about mission, clarity of goals, and breaking down.
I think I did hear that somewhere.
Yeah, he spoke.
What is his name? I'm gonna have to look him up. So everyone, if you don't know his name, look up who was the CEO of Boeing. And he managed everything from a page, says David.
That's right.
If you weren't in the career that you're in, what profession would you be in?
Sorry, gentleman's name was Alan Mulally.
Thank you.
Mulally. Mulally.
That's great. If you weren't in the career you're in now, what career would you be in?
I would be I'm a very creative person, so I will more and more of my projects will be more on the creative side. So because I present myself to the world, I come as someone who loves to communicate and does so with a kind of woo and wow personality. So especially when I get talking about champagnes and enjoying our lives with a bit more intentionality by seeking out and finding better inputs, better products to imbibe, like organic champagne, we are able to be present longer, and we're able to enjoy life, especially we are able to celebrate these moments and thrive in the next, is what we say.
Right. I love that, and I love that I can see your passion for what you believe in and what you're working towards, and especially with these organic champagnes and wines, you can just see it as you're marketing them and as you're talking about them, because you truly believe from your heart that you have something that is important to say.
This is important. We live, and I'll say this, with perspective, you and I and many others of your audience will live happy lives, not really optimizing, their champagne decisions, and some will have headaches after, and some will actually give it up and say, I can't do this anymore. Much like I was on the verge of doing when I started the company. And so I said, no, I have too much of, I'm a French American. I have ties, a family who live in France. I've been educated there. I've learned, my children have been, taught and raised to speak French in the home. And so this is, this is close to me. And the thought of like not having to give these up as I got older, this is a big no-no. So that put me on the quest to find these particular wines. And now that I have found them, we all work hard, and our routines our rewards for our routines that we have during the week, during the month, throughout the year, they should be rewarded. And items that give us a headache, that's not worth rewarding. I will also say that routines are not worth rewarding. If all you do is sit around the house and, eat potato chips and bonbons and watch reality TV, then these champagnes or these products are not, worthy of that routine.
Right.
But for all of us who are focused or goal orientated, who need to get things done the next day and the next day after that, and even better, who have maybe a good self-care routine, if it's a walk or if it's yoga or pickleball or if it's Pilates or yoga, though, you want to be able to maintain that care routine by drinking something that's not going to give you a headache the next day.
Yeah. I'm having a huge group of people. I'm echoing a little bit, but I'm having a huge group of people over for Thanksgiving, and we're all champagne drinkers. So if I don't have a headache when I need to have a huge breakfast the next day with the same amount of people there drinking more champagne, then I am all for it. So you will be opening up the doors for a huge clientele as soon as I get off this phone call with you, and we'll probably chat tomorrow of how I can get that. So hopefully you can open up my eyes to how to really understand champagne, and then we can open up our audience into really enjoying those organic wines, because I really think that you have something that is really needs to be understood in this place.
We go back to your previous question, like, I'll add one more to my three things about, business, and that would be knowing your customer and then knowing the channel partners that can help. And I say that because we have a very specific persona of who we talk to, and it's a very specific person we have in mind. But when we talk, others can like listen in and resonate. But we have in our mind's eye who we're talking to, and then we know that it appeals to several other kinds of segments and people in general. It's important to know that voice, but to know the channel partners. So, we have tasting events I don't want to say all over the country, but in our key markets, which are like Georgia and Tennessee and Texas, and even in Florida. And in those markets, we love to work with realtors who recognize what we have. And then at a closing, just say, I'm not only just going to give you something you're going to enjoy, but you're going to enjoy it the next day and think of me. And you're going to enjoy it from here on out. When you like, where did you get this? You'll come back to me, or because this stuff isn't around everywhere. But organic champagne is a great way.
And I love, and maybe for a different podcast, I love what you said. It's for a very specific avatar. And a lot of salespeople and a lot of people don't realize how important that is to develop your avatar and to know who you're speaking to.
Yeah.
And that's really paramount in a lot of markets. So what's in the future for David?
What's in the future for David? Well, growing this company to have really be recognized as a back of the label kind of validation. So in addition to like seeing the organic and the the sustainable, you'll see imported by AVID Vines and go, I know this guy's palate. I know David's palate. I know what they do. Yeah. And now I'll trust anything that, that they bring and that I can see. And that frankly is a great way that I started off my appreciation for wine, was looking at the back label and saying, oh, some greats like Eric Solomon or Eric Wildman. These are great importers that it was the last resort. If I didn't know anything about the wine or the region and I was taking a guess, I'd look around the back and I would say, well, I trust these guys who bring this, to the US.
Yeah, I had no idea. And I'm so glad that you've educated me just a little bit about what your process is and what your product is. And I'm so appreciative that I was able to meet you at the Entrepreneurs Organization at Nerve last week, or maybe it was the week before, actually 2 weeks ago. Maybe it did. God, time flies. How does that happen?
Crazy.
So just totally happens way too fast. We need to enjoy life and our champagne, right? So It was great talking to you today. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you, Sue.
educating us, David. And if people want to get in touch with you for their palettes and to see what they would love, how would they get in touch with your company?
Yeah, .com. So AVID Vines, VINES, if you're listening and not seeing, it's AVID, AVID, Vines.com.
Okay, well, super. Thank you so much for sharing with us today. And everyone, if you liked everything that you heard today, please share and like with your friends and family. We would definitely like to get Grab Your Keys podcast off the ground even more. So we will see you next time on Grab Your Keys.